What is up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing the Jinn. As most of you know, I am currently writing a book on shadow people, and in it, I go through each type in each chapter and explain fully each theory, and also my experience with and beliefs about each one individually, and also the shadow entity phenomenon as a whole. One thing I talk about often on this channel is the Jinn. The main reason for this is because I wholeheartedly believe this is exactly what is attacking and feeding off of my mother right now, and what has been for at least a year. Most of you will remember when I was staying with her, and my Wednesday night streams were often accompanied by strange shadows and orbs, things moving in the background that shouldn't have been, and also my mother herself upstairs screaming because she was being attacked in some way, or just felt the presence of something evil up there in her room with her. I believe wholeheartedly that that was a Jinn. I want and need to get as much information on this one particular type of shadow entity as I possibly can, not only in order to finish my book and make it awesome for you all to read, but to protect my mom in this vulnerable time, as it is still only just months since my stepfather's passing. Let's go ahead and dive right in, shall we? There are so many supernatural energy-based entities we talk about and discuss at length in this community, but I believe the Jinn are definitely the ones that we need most fear. I don't even really believe they should be grouped in the title shadow entity, because I believe there's something else entirely. They are something which our human brains and eyes can only perceive as shadow. I believe this is also true for some extraterrestrials, but make no mistake when I say that I by no means believe there's any sort of connection there, aside from a very small one, which we'll talk about towards the end of this video. The Jinn are ancient and extremely powerful and should definitely be avoided at all costs and when and wherever possible. There are a small group of Jinn that are said to be sometimes friendly and helpful, but much more often than not, they are dangerous and manipulative and not something you would want to take a chance with in order to determine what type you're dealing with. I fully believe they are parasitic in nature and feed off of our fear and any negative energy we may experience, or any lower vibrational feelings we may have, such as sadness and depression, and definitely hatred, and as I said, fear. Another word for that we use often in this community is vampiric. The Jinn are definitely, among other things, energy vampires. One of the most respected and learned researchers into energy-based spiritual entities is a woman who unfortunately has passed away, named Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She knew her stuff and wrote tons of books, including The Vengeful Jinn and The Jinn Connection, among many others. She was absolutely brilliant, and I will miss hanging on to her every word while reading those books. She talked often about how the Jinn feed and said things like, quote, "They can eat human food when they take human form, but our food does not sustain them. It gives them pleasure. They can absorb the essence of food and things like the molecules from tobacco smoke, which provide enjoyment. Their main source of nourishment is the absorption of energy from life forms. The best is the draining of the soul, but it is difficult to do and is considered unlawful. It is, however, practiced by certain powerful renegade Jinn. The vampiric absorption of the life force can be quite detrimental to people and even cause health problems," end quote. Before we unpack a little bit of that statement, I would like to first discuss the history of the ancient Middle Eastern Jinn. We have always had a particularly disturbing history with these entities, and according to ancient legends, they were here long before us. At the very least, they were tens of thousands of years ahead of us. The sacred book of Islam and its teaching is called the Quran, and in its pages you will find a very detailed history of this supernatural energy-based entity. Those of the Muslim faith believe this holy book is the word of God, like the Christians believe in the Bible. Of course, he is called Allah to them. As somebody who has studied all different kinds of religions while trying to see where I fit in the grand scheme of things of life here, right? I can tell you, and if you too have studied the Quran and the Bible, that despite there are many major differences in these two holy books, there are also so many deep similarities as well. In the Bible, it teaches that God created the human race in the form of Adam and Eve. Eve was crafted from one of Adam's ribs. In the Islamic teachings of the Quran, Allah not only brought Adam into creation as well, but here there is a lot more to the story. He brought humans and the angels to life and created them and us, but he also created something else. These are supernatural entities that had the same status as the angels. The Jinn were made of smokeless fire, but despite their being so powerful and mighty, things took a bad turn for them fairly quickly after the creation of humanity, of Adam. In the Quran, it says that the angels and the jinn were ordered by Allah to not only respect, but to show a deep reverence for Adam. The angels obeyed, as they always do. The jinn, not so much. They made the catastrophic decision to go against Allah's mighty word. They were immediately cast out and basically unceremoniously flung out of the realm of heaven, with their only shot of maybe redeeming themselves not coming until Judgment Day. This is when they will be given the chance at regaining their higher up status while still having to respect and kind of sort of bow to us humans. On Judgment Day, a day which no one knows when it's coming, the jinn, or so it's said, will be lined up before the Creator and have the chance to make amends and apologize for going against his mighty word and disobeying his orders. They were, or so it seems from all of this, the original rebels without a cause, but with a cause. Until that day comes, though, for some reason that I still cannot come to terms with or make any sense of at all, these entities are allowed to not only freely roam the earth and the spirit realm as well, completely doing as they please, when, where, and how they want, and we are somehow, and for whatever the reason, most of us anyways, helpless to do anything about it for the most part. Their activities include feeding on us, making our lives miserable, physically harming us, and possibly, and this has happened, it's documented throughout history so many times, killing us. They are able to do great physical harm, and as a matter of fact, if I remember, I'll put a link to the video I did on Christopher Case, as I wholeheartedly believe it was the jinn that stalked, haunted, and then killed him at the behest, of course, of some evil witch he refused to bed. Here's the thing, though. When it comes to physical violence, as I stated, they are extremely capable and more than willing to hurt us and even obliterate us, and I doubt they even give it a second thought after feasting on our fear and death and doing only God knows what to our immortal souls afterwards. They are only able to influence us to commit terrible acts to a certain degree. They can influence, but they cannot compel. We have to have the final say, of course, mainly because of the free will we were given, but I mean, who stands a chance when you have a jinn influencing you to not only make poor decisions, but possibly to commit acts like taking your own life or the life of someone else, committing violence against others as well, the list goes on. According to the legend, the most powerful jinn is Iblis, and he is the overlord. The name Iblis literally translates to despair in English, so that right there should speak volumes. Iblis's objective is comparable to Satan's, and in fact, they could kind of be considered one and the same, in that it's his job to lure the human race into sin and essentially over to the dark side. Iblis is also called by the name Shaitan, and it's said basically that he is kind of like, quote, the ultimate jinn, end quote, whereby any other jinn are like Satan's demons. So essentially, minions. Obviously, if you know anything about the Christian Bible, you will see the similarities here. Iblis is the one who ordered all of his fellow jinn to disobey and revolt when they were ordered to bow down to Adam by the Creator. Iblis saw himself and the other jinn and even the angels so far above humanity and scoffed at the idea of ever bowing to us, and in fact thought it should be the other way around. His reasoning for this, at least one of them, was what each entity was crafted from, meaning the jinn and human beings. Man was made from simple dirt and the jinn from smokeless fire, after all. The jinn are more powerful than us, sure, and they have lifespans that are incredibly longer. From a simple human's perspective, the jinn are basically immortal. Iblis and all of the other jinn are shapeshifters, and some of the forms they're able to take on are extraterrestrial, that's what I was talking about in the beginning, large black dog, elementals, and snakes, just to name a small few. They're also able to come and go interdimensionally as easily and as quickly as we're able to snap our fingers. So in a way, or better yet in some ways, the jinn are technically superior to us, and when in their presence, it's just as easy for them to manipulate us as it is for them to switch the aforementioned dimensions. I really hate the fact that in today's society, and especially and mainly in this community, the nature of the jinn has been not only watered, but dumbed down and extremely simplified. Calling a jinn a genie or relating them to one is not only false, but extremely dangerous as well. The jinn are not some happy-go-lucky, mythical, wish-granting cartoon character, but are instead some of, if not the most fearsome and terrifying, evil and cruel, supernatural, often demonic entities out there. As I stated before, there are some good jinn, but you'll have to wait for my book to hear about those, at least from me. And the jinn can very easily intrude upon our world and manipulate hatred, havoc, murder, and mayhem when and how they choose to see fit. So, What about their lives and domains? It's been universally accepted, at least by those who follow and believe in the Quran, that the jinn were made from smokeless fire. If that's the case, then you may be wondering how they are so easily able to feed off human energy the way that they do. How can they have a physical form and intelligent consciousness and perform what I'll put in extremely simple terms and called feats of magic with a K? Most likely the references to the jinn being born of any kind of smoke or fire has accidentally been misinterpreted over time. Rosemary Ellen Guiley believed she had the answer to these seemingly unanswerable and nonsensical questions. I believe the conclusions she drew were correct as well. It has to do with what we call plasma. She suspected that the jinn are actually plasma-based entities, and you guys got to look into this. It's actually pretty amazing. And that this is what's caused the misinterpretation of the smokeless fire creation story. She also posited that both the realms of heaven and hell mentioned and agreed upon in both the Quran and the Bible are dimensions of existence most of us have no access to and that are extremely different from our own 3D world. That's an understatement to say the least, but again, I'm just trying to simplify here, guys. Rosemary stated, quote, "These different aspects are what govern the universe, the fundamental forces of nature, and all the elementary particles contained within," end quote. As most of us in this community know by now, heaven and hell are just two out of an innumerable and possibly infinite amount of realms beyond our own. The jinn most likely inhabit many of these realms, only they're not of flesh, blood, and bone like us, despite seeming to be so when we come into contact with them, but they're of plasma. Despite the insurmountable number of seeming differences between humans and the jinn, there are some things that we kind of have in common too. They marry, they have offspring, and they have male and female entities. Remember too, the jinn only seem immortal as when they're compared to our human lifespans, but they do in fact eventually die like us. While they inhabit a completely different plane of existence than our own, they technically also inhabit the same one. For example, if you think you're alone in your bedroom and you're doing whatever like watching Netflix or talking on your phone, there's always the chance that some sort of entity from somewhere else is sharing the space with you. However, just like the jinn, they're able to eye your every move and listen to your every sound while also remaining hidden from you because they don't fully cross over into your space. This is why so many people who experience supernatural activity or what we call hauntings always describe an odd sense of not being alone or even of being watched. It's because there are entities around us at all times. I'm not saying there's a jinn around you at all times, but there's more often than not some kind of entity around you at some point, and you'll be able to sense it because all of us have that sixth sense, whether you think you do or not. You do. You were born with it. So that's what we're picking up. We just can't see it. Like you can sense sometimes something looking at you from the right-hand corner of your room, and you'll be right. You just can't see it with your physical eyes, but you know that it's there. The laws just work differently for other dimensions, and from what I surmise, we have the most restrictive dimension and also the most restrictions on us as humans as well. The jinn also seem to have a love for music and oftentimes will whistle a tune to keep themselves entertained. Our early morning hours are the hours in which they're most active, if in our realm. So that's why between like 12 and 4, right, when it's dark. If you are ever startled awake by random whistling or the humming of some hypnotic and seemingly foreign tune, you most likely, and unfortunately, are dealing with a jinn. They could be passing through, which in most cases is what they tend to just do. When they leave their own dimension or plane of existence, the jinn are said to dwell in deep underground tunnels, caves, and in the remains of abandoned and or broken down old human structures. Nowhere is this more apparent or the case than in the Middle East. It is in fact true for the whole world though, too. They prefer ancient Indian and Middle Eastern music, but again, that's based on the specific tastes of the individual entity. All are said to absolutely love the sound of the sitar, though, and I don't know what that is, so I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right. They have a love of dogs, and our canine friends can easily spot a jinn, and as we know, other entities as well when we can't. Dogs and donkeys are said to be the ones who will spot this particular entity the fastest, though, as they see them, even without them having to fully cross over into our dimension. When going back on how they have been called a genie in our Western culture, I think this stems from the fact that the jinn are well known for offering the people they are torturing some sort of gift or trinket. It's also true you can make deals or barter with them, but as we all should know by now, when you deal with the devil, it seldom turns out in your favor or good for you at all. So along those lines, imagine trying to cut a deal with the devil and see how that works out for you. I won't hold my breath waiting for you to get back to me and tell me how it did. The deals and offerings of gifts and trinkets, like I said, is most likely why I believe that the genie and the 3 wishes have somehow, some convoluted way, made the jinn a genie in our Western culture. If a jinn is targeting you more and more as time goes on, it is able to enter into your mind. Being a Christian, I am immediately thought of demonic possession, and I wasn't too far off when I started researching further. Unfortunately, the overtaken or the possessed person can be made to do all sorts of things that, unfortunately, our closed-minded society will blame on mental illness or the affected person just being evil and or psychopathic, to name just a few more modern labels. I'm not saying these things or this type of person doesn't naturally exist. I am just saying that it isn't always the case. It really is that straightforward, and that's terrifying. A lot of the time, though, they simply play tricks on us and love to manipulate electricity. They may move things around or hide things in your home and make you drive yourself half crazy searching for the hidden and or moved item and wondering how in the world it ended up where it did when you finally find it. They can blow up your lights and make your appliances fail to work with no explanation and do it over and over and over again. As long as it's getting a rise out of you, they're going to continue doing it. Like I said, there really is no other motive, of course, other than to feed off of our lower vibrational feelings such as fear and anger, annoyance and aggravation, even just to name a few. They cause not only mental but physical illness as well, and I'm pretty sure this is where the feeding comes in. Rosemary Guiley warns us, quote, their main source of nourishment is the absorption of energy from life forms, end quote. Rosemary tells of many encounters, but one that stands out to me, mainly because there is no ending, but also because it should be a warning to you all. Also, it deals with what's thought to be a, quote, simple shadow person, end quote, is the story of Emily. In 1999, she lived in Texas and had an encounter with a shadow entity in her apartment. Many people who know better, though, believe she was encountering not only one jinn, but possibly several of them. She had recently, as in just a couple of weeks before the encounter, became interested in and started researching the jinn. This in and of itself should be a warning to us to be careful what we start looking into, lest it start looking into us. Just thinking about them too often could open a doorway that allows them in and causes them to start focusing on you. This is not the case with all supernatural entities, but definitely the jinn, the men in black, and the black-eyed kids, again, just to name a small amount of few. These are the ones we should try not to even give a second thought to once we come across them. As hard as that is for some of us, trust and believe, I know. Anyways, back to Emily in her Texas apartment back in 1999. She claims that after starting on her second book, in researching the jinn, she started to see out of the corner of her eye small shadow-like figures lurking all over the place. She would peripherally see them behind couches, standing in corners, and peering around doorways. She also felt they were pulling at her duvet at night while she lay in bed trying to sleep. Innumerable electrical outages like her alarm clock and microwave not working all of a sudden and out of nowhere. Aside from all of these things, she was having nightmares of the jinn in which it sucked her energy out of her, straight up mouth to mouth, and Emily even described it like she felt the creature was somehow kissing the energy out of her. Ew. So I'm not sure how it all ended for Miss Emily, unfortunately, and I was going to tell you all about the encounter I watched my mother have one night last June, where she was physically pushed over and over again into a wall by something neither one of us could see, that my mother described as a shadow hooded figure that was sitting on her legs and leaning into her right before she jumped up. Well, we couldn't see it until the lights were turned on, but this story is getting long enough, and again, it'll all be in the book, and I've told it so many times before. I don't know how things ended for Emily, but I know I'm going, ironically, 1 year to the day we first encountered the thing last year, at the end of this month, to do a full-blown blessing and cleanse on my mother's entire house, because she has been haunted, tormented ever since, and in the past 2 months or so since I stopped staying with her, she has been attacked and woken up with bruises, scratches, and or burns at least 6 times. So guys, after watching this video, like, literally cleanse yourselves and try not to give it another thought. Like, try maybe not to research that much into them. Physical mediums or people with abilities, like, a lot of us will know how to protect ourselves from things like that. But even so, things could still creep in and things could still happen, as with what happened to my mom while I was right there. I'll keep you guys posted on how it goes with my mom at the end of the month, but remember, the jinn and really any other supernatural or otherworldly entity are not something to play with or joke around about. This is especially true if you don't know what you're doing. leave it to the experts. And like I said, try your absolute best not to even research too much into certain things on your own. If you're unsure, ask an expert and take it from there. That's all I have for you today, guys. Please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed spending this time with me and hanging out. Spread the love by sharing this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Please make sure and leave a comment in the comment section below. I've been trying to be more diligent, as always, about getting back to you on them. In the description box, you will find links to my merch store there on Etsy, and also you will find information how to contact me at MoonBearOracle@gmail.com about my manifestation and intention sprays. They're getting more popular as I send them out to you guys, and you guys truly have been loving them, and I'm really excited about that business. Still haven't had time to get the official website up yet, but if you have any questions, ask me about it, or look into someone who already got one. I also did a video. I'll try to leave the link for it in the description box if I remember, along with the Christopher Case video of me talking about the new business, again, with the lawnmower. It's like every time I start to film. That's great. If you haven't subscribed to my other channel, MoonBearOracle, please go on and do that. If you would like a personal intuitive oracle reading from me, please email me your first name and birth date at moonbearOracle@gmail.com. If you have any encounters with the supernatural, paranormal, otherworldly, extraterrestrial, strange, and bizarre, please email me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com, and I will put them in my Listener Encounters series. On Wednesday nights from 7:15 to 11:15-ish p.m. Eastern Time, it's me and Ghost Dragon CW, and I still am doing the one-card pulls Intuitive Oracle weekly readings for anyone and everyone who comes in. First come, first serve. Try and get your name on the list by 10:45 Eastern to make sure that I can fit everyone in. On Tuesday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, it's myself and Ghost Dragon ZW, kind of bringing back the old campfire stories that Steve Stockton and I used to do, or the fireside chats rather, where we just talk about things and stuff and things and hang out with you guys and catch up on our weeks. If you would like to make a donation to the channel, I will leave the links for my Patreon, PayPal, Cash App, and my Amazon wish list gift link that has like decks and crystals and all types of things for this channel and for MoonBearOracle. If you pledge, donate $20 or more on Patreon each month, you will automatically receive, on top of all of the other bonuses and extras, a monthly intuitive oracle reading, 7 to 12, sometimes 15 or more cards from me. If you would like to purchase my book, Missing the Faith Theory by Gemma Jade, it's on Amazon. I will leave the links to the Kindle and paperback version in the description box. Guys, thank you so much for returning. Thank you so much for all of your support and your love, all of your gifts, all of your donations, buying the manifestation and intention sprays to help me get my small business up and running. I am so super happy and amped about it, and your guys' support just means the absolute world to me. Be kind to each other, be kind to yourself, and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.